Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Good to be here.
Today, we're jumping into a security assessment report. This one's from CertiK, looking at Fastex token distribution smart contract.
Right. And this was back on October 14th, 2022.
Exactly. So think of this as like your quick guide to understanding the security situation for that project at that specific time.
Yep. We've gone through CertiK's findings. They did manual reviews, static analysis, the usual suspects for Solidity contracts.
And our goal here is really just to pull out the key takeaways for you, without getting lost in all the super technical jargon.
Definitely. And CertiK's approach was pretty thorough. They weren't just ticking boxes. They really tried to test against, well, common attack vectors, but also some of the less common ones.
Okay.
Plus checking if the code followed best practices, if the logic actually did what Fastex said it would.
And even comparing it against other big players in the space.
Exactly, sort of benchmarking the security.
Okay, so high level, what did they find? Any major red flags?
Well, they flagged a total of 4 findings overall. We can walk through them.
Sounds good. Let's start with the big one, I guess.
Yeah, the first one was marked major, though it was acknowledged by the Fastex team. It's about centralization risks.
Okay. Centralization. In this context, that means specific accounts or roles having a lot of control.
Precisely. Especially over how the tokens get distributed. Inside the main fast token distribution contract, there are several powerful roles.
Like what?
Well, you've got the founder's distributor role. Pretty self-explanatory. They handle setting and canceling the founder's tokens.
Makes sense.
Then the advisor's distributor role, same deal, but for advisors.
Okay.
But then the token sale distributor role, that one had quite broad powers.
How so?
It could set allocations, sure, but also burn and cancel allocations for several sale types. Private 1, Private 2, Public, even the pre-sale.
Wow. Okay. Burning tokens too. That's significant.
It is. Having that much power, especially the burn capability across different phases, concentrated in one role type, it's a potential single point of failure, deviates from that least privilege idea.
And were there others?
Yep. Marketing pre-distributor role for marketing and partner tokens. Ecosystem distributor role. Then one called blockchain burn role, which could also set, burn, and cancel the blockchain-specific allocations.
A lot of distinct roles with serious capabilities.
And on top of all that, the default admin role. This one's like the super admin.
What could it do?
It could manage all the other roles, assign them, revoke them. Plus, it could trigger refunds using refund tokens and refund.
So if any of these keys got compromised?
Big trouble, yeah. Someone can mess with the allocations, maybe drain funds meant for certain groups, or just disrupt the whole plan.
And CertiK also mentioned something about the multi-sig wallet itself, right? Another centralization point.
They did, yeah. Specifically, the is-owner role within the multi-sig wallet contract.
So the thing meant to help decentralize control also had its own potential issue.
Kind of. The is-owner role controls executing transactions, submitting them, confirming, revoking, basically everything the wallet does.
Okay.
So while a multi-sig is better than one person holding all the keys, CertiK pointed out that you still need really good security around the individual keys of those owners.
Makes sense. So what did CertiK recommend for all this?
Their main advice was obviously manage those private keys very, very carefully. And they pushed for more decentralized setups, like using multi-signature wallets for those powerful roles instead of just single addresses.
Did they suggest specific ways to set that up?
Yeah, they give some short-term ideas, like using time locks, delays before actions take effect, combined with multi-sigs.
Like a 2 out of 3 approval.
Exactly, or maybe 3 out of 5. They also suggested just time locks with maybe a 48-hour delay. And crucially, tell the public how it's set up. Time locks, who the multi-signers are. Transparency.
And longer term.
Longer term, think about even more decentralized stuff. Time locks, plus maybe a DAO or some kind of governance or voting system involving the community.
Again, with public info.
Absolutely. Transparency is key for trust.
And the sort of ultimate solutions.
Well, the most permanent fixes would be things like completely renouncing ownership of critical functions or just removing the risky bits from the contract entirely.
Radical, but permanent.
Right.
So how did the Fastex team react to this major finding?
They acknowledged it. They said, yeah, we see the risk, and their plan was to use a multi-sig wallet to actually execute the allocations.
But they didn't change the contract code itself.
No, they opted not to change the distribution contract code. Probably, didn't want to risk breaking something or introducing new bugs during the distribution.
Okay. Understandable trade-off, perhaps.
Yeah.
Let's move on. What was next? There was a minor issue.
Yeah, minor one, and this one got resolved. It was about using transfer and send ether.
Ah, the gas limit thing.
Exactly. Those functions only forward a fixed small amount of gas, 2300 gas.
Which might not be enough sometimes.
Right. If the receiving contract needs to do anything complex when it gets the ether, it could run out of gas and fail. Plus, there's a worry that future Ethereum updates might change gas costs, breaking things that rely on that fixed 2300.
And CertiK found this where?
In the fast token distribution.refund function, it was using transfer.
So the fix.
CertiK recommended using address.sendValue. It's a function from the popular Open Zeppelin library, gives you more control over BAS. And they also said, hey, make sure you protect against reentrancy attacks when you do this.
Right, reentrancy. That's where a contract can call back into itself unexpectedly, right? Maybe drain funds?
Pretty much, yeah. It exploits the execution flow. Using send value correctly, often with what's called the checks effects interactions pattern, helps prevent that.
And Fastex fixed this one.
They did.
Yeah.
The report even gives the commit hash 56TD4C, ends in 1E64, showing the code change.
Good. Okay, next up was a medium severity issue, also resolved.
Yes, another resolved medium one. This was in the multi-sig wallet.sol code. The logic for changing the owners of the wallet was flawed.
How was it flawed? Seems pretty fundamental.
It was a weird one. The checks were literally backwards.
Backwards.
Yeah. You know, when you change owners, you want to check that the current owner is actually an owner and the new owner isn't one yet.
Makes sense.
But the code, lines 125 to 132 specifically, it was checking if the new owner was already an owner and if the current owner was not an owner.
Whoa. Okay, that's definitely wrong. That would make it impossible to change owners correctly.
Exactly. CertiK just said, basically, fix the logic.
And Fastex did.
Yep.
Yep.
Fixed. Same commit hash as the transfer fix confirms it.
Okay, 2 for 2 on the fixes. What was the other medium issue?
Also in the multi-sig wallet, and also resolved, this one was about the number of confirmations needed.
Ah, the number of required confirmations.
Right. The issue was that there wasn't a strong minimum requirement.
What was the requirement initially?
It just had to be more than 0 and less than or equal to the total number of owners.
So you could have like a 5-owner multi-sig requiring only one signature?
Precisely. Which, you know, totally defeats the purpose of having a multi-sig wallet for security.
Yeah, that seems obvious. What did CertiK suggest?
They recommended setting a proper minimum, usually relative to the number of owners. Think common setups like requiring 2 out of 3 signatures or maybe 3 out of 5, a real majority or supermajority.
And Fastex implemented this.
They did. Another good fix that really strengthens the security promise of the multi-sig.
Great. So that covers the major and medium issues. What about the last one, an optimization?
Yeah, the last finding was categorized as an optimization, and this one was just acknowledged by the team, not changed. It's about variables that could be declared immutable.
Immutable, meaning they can't be changed after the contract is deployed.
Exactly. They're set once in the constructor and then fixed.
And why is that an optimization?
It's about gas costs. Reading an immutable variable is cheaper because the value is embedded directly into the contract's bytecode, rather than being loaded from storage, which costs more gas.
Okay, makes sense. Where did CertiK see this opportunity?
They pointed to line 20 in the multi-sig-wallet.sol code and noted that immutable has been around since Solidity version 0.6.5.
But the Fastex team decided not to make this change.
Correct. They acknowledged it, but left the code as is.
Why might they do that? Seems like saving gas is always good.
Could be several reasons. Maybe the gas savings were pretty small in the grand scheme of things. Maybe they preferred to minimize code changes, focusing on the bigger security fixes. Or perhaps they had future plans that made keeping it non-immutable simpler down the line. It's a judgment call.
Fair enough. Now, the report also had a whole section on formal verification, right? That sounds intense.
It is. Formal verification is a step beyond typical testing. It uses mathematical methods, essentially, to prove that certain parts of the code behave correctly under all possible conditions.
Like a mathematical proof.
Kinda, yeah. They often use techniques like model checking, where specialized tools explore every possible state the contract can get into to make sure certain safety or correctness properties always hold true.
Okay, so what did they formally verify here?
They focused on the core ERC20 token standards for 3 contracts. ERC20 burnable, the main fast token contract, and a standard ERC20 contract.
In which function specifically?
The really crucial ones for a token. Transfer, transfer from, approve, allowance, balance of, and total supply.
So the results. Did the contracts pass this mathematical scrutiny?
They did. It was actually a very positive result. CertiK checked 38 different properties related to these functions across the 3 contracts.
Yeah.
And their model checking proved that all 38 properties held true for all 3 contracts. That gives a really high level of confidence in the basic token operations.
Can you give an example of one of those properties, just to make it more concrete?
Sure. One property might be transfer from fails for transfers to the 0 address. They proved mathematically that you can't accidentally burn tokens by sending them to address 0 using transfer from.
Okay, that's a good safety check.
Another one, transfers the correct amount in non-self transfers, just proving the basic accounting works as expected, or prevents giving approvals for the 0 address. Similar safety checks.
Got it. So that formal verification adds a significant layer of assurance on top of the regular audit.
Definitely. For those core standardized functions, it's a very strong guarantee.
Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. Looking back at the whole CertiK report, what are the main takeaways for someone interested in Fastex?
Well, the audit definitely highlighted that significant centralization risk, which is, important to be aware of. The team acknowledged it and planned mitigation with a multi-sig.
Right, but they didn't change the core distribution contract.
Correct. On the plus side, the other issues, the medium and minor ones related to ether sending, owner checks, and confirmation numbers, those were all fixed.
Which is good to see. Shows responsiveness.
Absolutely. And then you have the formal verification results giving strong confidence in the basic token mechanics. So it's a mixed picture, but one where the team addressed several identified weaknesses.
So understanding these reports, like this CertiK one, it's pretty crucial, wouldn't you say,
Yeah.
for anyone interacting with these projects?
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're a user, potential investor, partner, these audits give you a vital snapshot, albeit a snapshot in time, of the security posture and how the team handles vulnerabilities.
Right. It's not the whole story forever, but it's critical information.
Exactly.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. We've seen this audit, the findings, the fixes, but blockchain isn't static, right? Security threats evolve, best practices change.
Constantly.
So the question is, beyond just a single point-in-time audit like this, what are the really essential ongoing things a project needs to do to maintain security and trust in the long run? Something to chew on.
A very important question indeed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.